Welcome, welcome, welcome. My session today is very simple. I'm going to be handling majorly two things. The first thing we're going to be talking about is why is math important? Because sometimes when we don't know the importance of something, it really affects how we approach it. So why is math important? That's the first thing that we're going to be looking at today. And then the second thing we're going to be looking at is why do children struggle with math? Because it's important for you to understand why the reason why this child is struggling with math so that you can help that child. Because children do not struggle with math for the same reasons. There are different reasons why children struggle with math. So you need to be able to figure out why this particular child might be struggling with math so that you're able to reach that child. Please, I just want to confirm once again that everybody can hear me loud and clear before we take a full dive into today's session.
Yes, we can.
Thank you. Great. Fantastic. All right. So I hope that we all have our books and our pens. Never come for a training without those. So that you're taking notes in case there's something that jumps out at you or there's something that you hear that everybody might not hear. It's called the dog whisper. So you write down your dog whispers and you write down the things that that you want to maybe explore a little further, things that made a lot of sense to you. So welcome again to today's session. Am I allowed to share my screen?
Just a minute. Yes, you can.
Okay. Please, I want to confirm that everybody can see my screen. Is everybody able to see my screen, please?
Yes, please.
Okay, great. All right, so my name is Uyime Okorosobo, and I'm just going to Mrs. Babatunde has really introduced me. I'm an educator. I'm a second generation school leader, and I'm a math superhero because it's my joy to show children that math is not that complex. It's one of the things that makes me very, very excited. Quick story. So there was a time I was doing a recording to teach. I was doing a math recording, and the guy who was recording the videos, he's a videographer, and then he just looks at me and he's like, "You're so excited." I can't help it. That's how I am with math. I'm also a reading enthusiast because I believe that every child should be able to read. Because the truth is, even if if children struggle with reading, they most likely will struggle with math. And so I'm also a reading enthusiast. All right, so this is an overview of what we're going to be doing today. We're going to be looking at what's math really good for, what's the importance of this math, and why the children struggle with math. We'll also be looking at some key strategies for effective math lessons. I'm going to be focusing on just a few of them. And then right after that, we're going to go into the practical applications. I'm not going to spend so much time on 4, 5, 6, but we're going to do 7 because I believe that most of 4, 5, and 6 have been done already, and I believe that the second speaker is going to do some more justice to this. So I'm going to really, really take my time to stay on 2 and 3. All right. This is a quote that I think is very, very insightful. It says that without mathematics, there's nothing you can do. Everything around you is mathematics. Everything around you is numbers. So let's think about this just for a minute. You want to bake. Your recipes are in numbers. They're asking you to put half a teaspoon of something. They're asking you to put a quarter of a teaspoon or a quarter of a cup of something. That's math. Now, you want to double your recipe. You must be able to know what 2 halves would be equal to. Or you want to triple your recipe. You have to know what 3 3/4 cups would be equal to. Math is really everything around us. Budgeting, financing, investing, where'd you put your money in? When you go to the store to buy something, how much change do you get? That's math. So math is very, very, very important. Now, as teachers, why do we teach math? Why is it even important that we teach math? Before we dive into that, I'd like to show you a quote that I came across, and I found it quite sad, but also as a call to challenge. It was a challenge to me to do more. It was a challenge to me to do more. And this quote says that the United Nations International Children's Emergency Fund, that's the UNICEF, has said that 75% of Nigerian children between the ages of 7 and 14 cannot read a simple sentence or even solve basic math problems. If this is the case, and this is really true, then we have a problem. Now, there's either a problem in the way that we teach math, or there's a problem in the way that the children are receiving math. But this for this 2 day session is here to address the problem from all ends, whether it's from the children's side or it's from the teacher's side, so that you can better make impact as a teacher and as a math tutor. So what are some of the reasons that children struggle with math? The first one I would say is fundamental skills. So we're talking about why do we teach math? That's the first part we're starting from. Why do we teach math? So why is it important that we teach math, right? So the first thing is a fundamental skill for problem solving. Problem solving is a part of life. Every day you will face problems. Every day you would come across a challenge or another. But the fundamental skill to be able to solve problem really comes from the knowledge of math. Have you ever wondered why at primary level every child is required to do math? No matter what this child is going to be in future, whether the child ends up being an engineer or the child ends up being a lawyer or a social media influencer, every child in primary and secondary is required to do math. Have you ever given it a thought? Why? It's because math is actually a fundamental skill for problem solving. You want to raise children who can solve problems in the future, raise children who can sit through math problems. They have the grit to solve through whatever problem they see in math. The second thing is math is important for daily life applications. I mean, I can talk about all the applications that they are in daily life. Budgeting. You collect your salary. You must be able to budget which amount goes where. What do I use for what? If I use this for this, would I be able to do this? Would I be able to pay my rent? Budgeting. Also, you want to take a loan from the bank, or you want to take a loan from a company, you must be able to know what the interest rates they're charging you on that will be, so that you don't bite more than you can chew. In investments, for example, if I invest in X, I will get 20% interest per annum. If I invest in Y, I'm going to get 40% per annum. What does that even mean? You have to be able to understand, just so that you can make proper decisions in life. Now, this is not just about problem solving, but it's just about our everyday life. You need to cook. You need to bake. How do you measure space? You need to cover a section of your wall with wallpaper, or you need to buy a clock to fit a particular area. How do you know that clock you're seeing in the market is going to fit that space that you have at home? It's math. That's really math. Math is that basic, and you need it every day and for everyday things. Now, math is also important for building confidence and independence. Children who do well in math are often confident and independent, because to be able to solve math problems, it requires you to have a certain level of confidence and a certain level of independence. Children need to be able to think about a problem, visualize that problem, and try to call the prior knowledge that they have and the former things that they have learned to come to bear to be able to solve that problem. So math is very important for building confidence and independence. It also boosts logical and analytical thinking. What does this mean? It just means that you are a math person, you are teaching math, or you are a math student. It just means that when it comes to the way people view life, you see it differently, because your mind is more open to accepting possibilities. Your mind is more open to dealing with whatever possibilities that they are, because of your knowledge of math, because of how many math problems you've dealt with, because of how often you interact with math. I love to teach math. I'm one of those teachers who, if I give a math problem to children, best believe I have my paper and my pen and I'm solving it. Because it just does something for me that I can sit down and solve through this problem, and I didn't need a calculator and I didn't need to refer to something else to solve this problem. So it boosts logical and analytical thinking. And this is a very, very important tool for life. Even companies, organizations, families, they need logical thinkers. They need people who are analytical in their thinking to be able to work through issues, to be able to think through things, to be able to say, oh, if we're going this direction, then we might need to do X, Y, Z so that we can arrive at that. All of these are empowered by your knowledge of math. Also, children who do well in math, most of the times do well in other subjects. One of my staff, her child, she changed her child's school at the beginning of this session, and she changed her child's school. And in that new school, her child is in secondary school, and in that new school, every child is required to do further math. And honestly, I couldn't understand why. Why does every child have to do further math? But the school's approach is that Every child can do further math. Nobody will fail math. And guess what? It's working. There's no child in that school, as at the last time that I asked, that isn't doing well in math. And once you're able to increase the math proficiency of your children, you are able to also increase their proficiency in other subjects, because math is really, really the foundation for improved academic performance. So we need to be able to understand that this is one of the importance. This is one of the reasons why math is really, really important. Now, the last two things that I want to talk about are economic growth and employment opportunities. I was listening to someone speak, and he said that the top jobs of 2024 that would be able to give people like the most earnings are jobs that are closely related to math. They are jobs that that people need math skills for: computer science, computer engineering. They are jobs, and they're things that need a knowledge of math to be able to work through. And math is very, very important for economic growth, for employment opportunities. You can understand math. Trust me, you are proficient in math. That means you know how to solve. You can solve problems. You can sit through problems. You can open up your mind to different possibilities that they have. You are confident. You are independent. You are independent. You are a logical and analytical thinker. Guess what? Companies will be looking for you. If you're a teacher that's like that, schools will be looking for you. Math also increases global competitiveness. So the economy, so the countries where their children are performing highly in math are the countries that have thriving economy. Look at China, look at Japan. Those are countries that are forward, because they have people that are thinking through issues, thinking through problems. And that is one of the things that math does. So the next time that you enter your class and the child says, why do I even need to teach math? Why do I even need to learn math? Why is this math even important? Because trust me, children will ask. I've had children ask me before, why do I even need to do this? Because sometimes when they get stuck, for them, they don't see why. And sometimes the difference between that child putting in the effort or not depends on them understanding why it is important that they learn it. So these are 7 reasons. Now, these reasons are not exhaustive. They're actually not exhaustive, but these are 7 reasons why we teach math and why math is done at foundation level. All primary school children, all secondary school children required to do math. Great. Now, seeing that math is really, really important, then what is the challenge? Why do children struggle with math? Why is it that we know that this math is important, but our children are struggling with math? And trust me, struggling with math is not something that is synonymous to just a certain age group of children. I don't know if you've ever noticed this. A child might be doing very well in math in lower primary, grade 1, 2, 3. By the time they get to grade 4, they begin to struggle. I don't know if anybody has noticed that before, has seen that happen before. Has anybody seen that happen before? I'll be looking in the chat because I feel like I'm talking a lot and maybe I'm talking to myself now at this point.
No, yeah.
Yes, no. Great. Yes. Now, why do children struggle with math? Sometimes you will see, thank you very much. Thank you for your responses. Yes, thank you. Now, it is important for us to understand why they struggle with math. As I said, children struggling with math is not synonymous to all the children that are 5 years or children that are 6 years. Or we cannot say, if a child does not struggle with math at 5 years, that means they will not struggle at 10 years. It doesn't follow, because a child might be doing well at a lower level and struggle at a higher level. So you need to understand why this child might be struggling. So now let's move quickly to why children might struggle with math. Now, there are different reasons why. So we'll go one by one and we'll try to cover a few of them. I think I have just about 5 that we'll cover. Now, the first one is math anxiety. Has anybody ever dealt with a child who, when you give a problem, if you are speaking and conversing with this child, you can tell that this child is very, very intelligent. He's an analytical thinker, can answer questions, but just give that child like 3 math problems and it's as though that child has frozen. Has anybody had to deal with children like that before? Please, I'm looking in the chat because that's the only way that I know that we're together. Has anybody had to deal with children like that? You can converse. This child can converse, can hold a conversation with you. This child can even answer questions. This child, if you even give this child maybe one sum to do, that child is good. But just give them like a worksheet of 10 questions or 5 questions. and you can begin to hear, oh, I don't understand. And you know that is not true. It's not that that child does not understand. Now, there is something called math anxiety, and it is real. And children do struggle with math anxiety. And math anxiety is a form of fear or apprehension when faced with math tasks. It can also cause students to perform poorly. Now, if you know that this child does not have any learning gaps, but this child is just anxious when it comes to math, that might be one of the reasons why your child struggles with math. Now, we are just exploring the issues. If you notice that this is the reason why this child is anxious with math, one of the things that you can do is for that child, give that child the math in bite sizes. So if you're going to give others 10 questions, give this child 2 questions. They're done with the 2, they will come to your table and to get the next one. They're done, they will come to your table to get the next one. What you're trying to do is you're trying to build their confidence to be able to take on more math problems. But you need to understand that some children get anxious when they see a ton of math problems. I have a child like that in my class. I teach grade 3 math. So what I try to do for this child is I try to, when I give others 5 questions, I might give her 2. I say, you have 5 questions, but I'm giving you 2 to start with. Once you're done with this 2, then we can go to the next one. You're done with this, come to my table. And with children like that, you have to gradually scaffold them to be able to get over the anxiety for math. It might not be a problem in learning. It might just be math anxiety. So you need to be able to get your children comfortable with numbers and comfortable with math. So math anxiety is one of the reasons why children might struggle with math. Now let's go to the next reason. Lack of conceptual understanding. Math is one of those subjects that if a teacher puts an example on the board and then gives a question, it's easy for the children to follow that example and solve the question. But does it mean that the children really understand that topic? It might not be. It might just be that they are copying and they are pasting. They know that, to solve this one, to add 2 fractions that have different denominators, I have to, and that's one of the reasons why I'm not a big fan of shortcuts when it comes to math. Because shortcuts in math don't allow children conceptual understanding of the topic that's being taught. So you say this 4/5 plus 3/6. Take the 6 here, add it to the 4 here. Take this one, add it to this one. Then what is the conceptual understanding there? That child does not know. But following your example that you've put on the board, that child is able to answer that question. But trust me, there's a big issue. Because if that child is given that question outside the example that you have put on the board, that child is not going to be able to understand that, okay, this is what is required to solve this problem, because the child has been given a shortcut already to solve this problem. Now, I'm not totally against shortcuts, but I believe that once a child understands and has been given conceptual understanding, the child has gained rather conceptual understanding of what a problem entails, how to solve a problem, then you can introduce shortcuts. I'll give you an example. I was teaching a child and there was a question, what is 4% of 20? A question as simple as that, 4% of 20. And the child was trying to put in a shortcut. And I'm like, okay. And then she did it and got stuck. Because as a teacher, I will let you start. I only come in because I'm the teacher. I don't have all of the knowledge. I don't know everything. And I stay there as a facilitator. I am not the dispenser of all knowledge. Because in my classes too, I've learned things from my children as well. But she got stuck. And then when she got stuck, it got me thinking. So I had to take her back and I had to explain to her 4% of a number. What is 4%? How do we put 4% as a fraction? And then she says 4/10. What sign is off in math? What does off represent? Off is multiplication. So 4/10 times, to interpret that question just the way it is. Let's leave out shortcuts. And so that's why I would advise that if your children are at primary level, please use as few shortcuts as possible so that they can gain conceptual understanding. Now, another reason why it is very important that children gain conceptual understanding of math problems is because math is an incremental subject, meaning that children do fractions in grade 1. They will also do fractions again in grade 2. They will do fractions again in grade 3. Not the same level, different levels, right? Incremental levels. They will do math again in grade 3. By the time they get to grade 4, they will do fractions again. By Do you understand? So fractions at grade 1 level is not the same as fractions at grade 2 or grade 3 or grade 4 level. But if your child does not understand the concept of fractions from as little as grade 1 or grade 2, then they will struggle. So when you're doing addition of fractions with the same denominators, if your child does not understand that, you now want to jump to addition of fractions with different denominators, you have to be sure that your children have conceptual understanding so that they don't struggle in their next class when they are doing a more advanced level of what you have taught. The purpose of a math class is not for your children to get all the answers correct. It's for them to understand, why do we solve this problem this way? And how can I relate this to real life? Those are the two most important things in a math class. Why do we solve this problem this way? Why do we use multiplication to solve a problem like this? Why do we use division to solve a problem like this? And how can I relate this to real life? If I have a word problem that requires me to solve this question, can I do that? Very, very important. So conceptual understanding. Next one is poor early foundation. I believe that in talking about conceptual understanding, I've most likely touched on early math skill, on poor early math foundation. Math is an incremental, meaning that what you have done in grade 1, there's a more complex version waiting for you in grade 2. What you are doing in grade 3, there's a more complex version waiting for you in grade 4. What you have done in grade 4, there's a more complex version waiting for you in grade 5. Yes, Taiwo, I agree with you. The purpose is not to get all the questions correct. And sadly, parents don't understand this. I agree with you completely. But that is why it is your duty as an educator to not just educate the children, but also the parents. If parents understand what you are trying to achieve, trust me, most of them will work with you. I'll give you an example. Recently in my school, our children did a competition, and it was like a logic math competition. Trust me, these questions were logical. I mean, we sent the question papers home and the parents were going, what kind of questions are these? We couldn't even get all the answers correct. But what we explained to the parents was, it's not about how many questions they can get right, but we want to be able to show our children that, you see this math that we're doing, we need to be able to apply it fully to real life, because that's what logic is. We need to be able to apply it fully to real life. And so even when some of our children were getting 20%, we were certain that our parents were not going to be mad about it, because they understood what we were trying to achieve. And we told the parents, after this, once we have been able to introduce the children to this, then we would now make it a part of our every week class. So our mental classes now become logic math sessions. So if you can sell it to your parents, trust me, most of your parents will work with you. But one of the issues that I find is that sometimes you're not able to properly defend what you are doing. So you cannot even explain it properly to the parents. And so as a teacher, you have to be confident in what it is that you want to achieve, so that you can communicate this to the parents. And trust me, many parents are intelligent. And if they understand what you're trying to achieve, they will work with you. So poor math foundation is another reason why children are likely to struggle with math. I call it gaps in the building. You are building a fence and there's a hole right in the middle of the fence. Then you skip a portion, you continue to build. What happens when there's a little wind or something hits against that fence? It's definitely going to fall, because that fence is not standing properly. And that's how I view gaps in the building. That's how I view gaps in the building. So when the child has not learned something properly, then they will struggle. I'll give you an example. 2 years ago, I was teaching grade 4, and we were doing area of a triangle. Area of a triangle is half base times height, or base times height over 2. It's easy when the base and the height are even numbers, right? So say the base is 2, the height is 6. 2 plus 6 is 8, divided by 2 is 4. Area is 4 centimeters squared. Good. Now, what if one of those parts, maybe the height is an odd number? So you have 9 as your height, and your base as maybe 3. You now have 9 times 3 is 27. 27 divided by 2. So that's how we're doing math in the class that day. And I realized that my children were struggling to divide odd numbers. We stopped that class. We actually paused our area of triangle class to go back to long division. Because as a math teacher, one of the things that you must realize is that if your children, there's something they need to know to be able to excel in your present class. And if they don't know it, they will struggle. It's better you pause your class, go back and fill that gap, and then come back to continue your lesson. It will be easier for you, it will be easier for your children than to keep pushing them. We're together so far, please give me a thumbs up. You understand everything that I've said so far, please give me a thumbs up. Or what is one of the things that has actually stood out for you in the last few minutes that I have been talking? Fantastic. Thank you for the thumbs up. Thank you so much. Thank you. So it's better you pause your class and go back and fill that gap. Go back and fill that gap. Go back and do that thing. Yes, go back to the foundation. Thank you, Mrs. Zoni. Go back. Your children are doing multiplication, for example, and they are struggling with addition. My brother, my sister, go back to addition, because it is easier to introduce multiplication as a concept of repeated addition, so that if your children even get stuck on 3 times 4, they can know that if they add 3 4 times, they will get the answer. So they can always see that there is a way out of this place that they are stuck at. Strive to get it right with the basics. That is correct. However, if you're teaching a class and you see that there is a problem, there's a gap, your children don't understand something, please pause your class, go back and fill that gap, then come back and take that class. You will see that you will finish that class faster than you even thought you would. Poor math foundation. Now, the next thing is teaching methods and curriculum. You see this one? It's very, very important. Teaching methods and curriculum. Many times as teachers, we believe that, we have it locked down. So if the child does not understand, it's the child that is not understanding. Please be very sure. Be very sure that you are teaching this thing in a way that the child can understand. Because sometimes the problem is not the child. Sometimes the problem is the curriculum or the teaching method that is applied to teach that curriculum. How do you teach math? How do you break it down? When you teach children multiplication, do you teach only one method of multiplication? When you're teaching your children to skip counts, when you're teaching your children division, do you teach only one method of doing it? So what if that child doesn't get that method? Can they figure out, or have you given them another tool to be able to figure it out some other way? Do you know that there are almost 4 or 5 different methods of doing multiplication? It's not just the vertical one that we know, which is 24 times 4 or 24 times 48. We have the box method of multiplication. We have the lattice method of multiplication. Are you giving your children tools to excel? Are you teaching them in a way that if they get stuck in this method, they can pivot to another method and still get that answer correct? Thank you, Mrs. Oni. Partition method. Different methods of teaching just multiplication. As a teacher, you must be vested. You must know that there are different ways to teach one thing. Don't be, this is the only way. If it is not this way, then it's not correct. You know, one of the things that amazes me the most is when teachers teach children math, for example, and they want the children to work it out the exact way they taught them. You're just confining those children and you're not allowing them to explore and to think. I was teaching a division class and the child says, division is the opposite of multiplication. I knew my work was done with that child at that level. We're in grade 3, because she understood that if 9 times 7 is 63, 63 divided by 7 is 9, 63 divided by 9 is 7. She saw the relationship between division and multiplication. I knew my work was done. But I have children who would rather use the lattice method of multiplication to do multiplication than the vertical method that we are all used to. So as a teacher, please look into your methods. Go online, explore. Go online, research, look for different ways to teach that particular thing. Don't think that because you have been teaching it that particular way for the last 4 years, that's the best way to teach it. That's not true. There are newer and better ways to teach it. And you must be open enough to finding those ways, because it is for the good of your children. Yes, you must allow your children to explore strategies. It's not only one way. Math is not one way. I usually explain math is like a junction that has different roads leading to it. And as long as a child stays on one particular road and stays well on that road, they will get to the answer. That's why in math, it is important that your children show you they are working, so that you can understand the child's thought process to get to the answer. It's not so that you can check whether that's what you taught. Your children show they are working so that you can follow their thought pattern on how they approach this question to be able to get to the answer. Now, the next one is societal attitudes towards math. Some people just believe that, in our house, we cannot learn math. In our family, we don't know math. I don't know if anybody has ever said that then before. In our family, we don't know math. And your child just hears it. and automatically just believes that they cannot learn math or they cannot know math. These are cultural and societal factors. As a teacher, you must be able to recognize what is causing this child to struggle with math and break it down. That's why it's important to have conversations with your children. Have conversations with your children. There is no group of children that are less capable of succeeding in math than others. It's not true. And the last one I'm going to be exploring is learning disabilities. So there are different learning disabilities. For example, dyscalculia is one that affects children in learning math. Please, you're a teacher. You're not a therapist. Please don't diagnose anybody. Don't label anybody. Please, you are not a therapist. You are a teacher. But we are just exploring the reasons why children might struggle with math. So it's better that we know all of these. Now, if your child just struggles with math anxieties, trust me, there is no reason to fill in any gaps. There might not be any gaps. It might just be that child just feels overwhelmed when they see a lot of questions. If your child has an issue with early math foundation, for example, early math foundation, that's not just a conceptual problem. That is the fact that there's something they should have learned in their previous class that they haven't learned. Figure out what that thing is and teach that thing so that your children can excel. Now, we're going to explore some strategies to improve math. What can we do to improve math in our classes for our learners? What can we do to improve math for our learners? I'm just going to be looking at a few things. The very first thing I'm going to look at is lesson planning. I don't know about these teachers. Maybe the teachers on this call are super teachers, but many of the teachers I've worked with don't like lesson planning. In short, lesson planning for them is stress. If you're a teacher and you like lesson planning, please give me a thumbs up. I want to know that I'm dealing with, fantastic teachers. Mr. George, you love lesson planning. He's laughing. Now, the truth is, one of the strategies to improve math for your children or for your learners is lesson planning. You cannot take away this lesson planning. You see, you have to be able to effectively plan your lesson. Your lesson provides a roadmap to what you need to teach to ensure that your children align with the learning objective. Your lesson planning is what is going to help you cater to all the different learners in your class. This lesson planning is what is going to help you to cater to that child who might be having math anxiety. This lesson planning is what will help you cater to that child who will finish all the questions quickly and now be bored because they finished and there's nothing else for them to do. Lesson planning. Your lesson planning should go all the way to how your children are able to relate this to real life. When you think about it that way, then you will put in more effort to plan your lessons effectively. So lesson planning is very important. Another one is prior knowledge. I've talked about prior knowledge. Math is connected. I've said this through this class, through this training. Math is connected. So there's something your children are doing now that they will do a more complex version of later. But you must be able to assess for prior knowledge in your class. And the first thing you need to do to be able to assess for prior knowledge is to be able to even know what prior knowledge to your children need for that particular math class. Do you know that fractions is a prior knowledge for time? For example, when you have a circle and you cut it in half, you know that's half past. Down like this, half past. When it goes to 3 and 9, it's quarter. It's now not quarter past. If we draw a circle and we divide it at the 3 and 9 points, and we not divided that circle into quarters, fractions is a prior knowledge for time. So you even need to be able to be learned enough, to be able to be detailed enough to understand what prior knowledge do my children require to excel in this particular class that I'm teaching. Then continuous assessments. During lessons, you must be able to gauge your children's understanding. That's why as a math teacher, you must not teach and go and sit down. Don't teach and go and sit down. You will teach. After you finish teaching, even when you give tasks for your children to do, you must be able to go round to be able to check that your children are doing it, that they are understanding, and check for understanding in real time. Don't wait until they've done tests. Don't wait until they've done exam to say, oh, this child did not understand. In your class, you must be assessing as you are teaching, as you are giving sums, as you are asking questions. You must be assessing who is understanding, who is not understanding, who has gotten it 100%, who has gotten it 20%, who needs extra lessons. You must be able to be doing that assessment during your class. Please don't teach. Thank you. It's called assessment for learning. Thank you, Mr. Ade. You cannot teach a class and go and sit down. You have to assess as that class is going on, as you are having conversations with your children. And please, don't make your math class very serious. Sometimes that should just be a conversation. You guys are just talking. You are just gisting. You are talking about what it is you are teaching. Do you know that some of the most effective math classes I have taught, I've taught it without the children writing anything in their books? We just went outside and we sat down on a circle and we were just talking and gisting and talking, and we talked about something, and then I would use my marker. Do you know that if you use your board marker to write on tiles, do you know that all you need is just tissue to clean it? But it's a different learning environment for your children, and it does the trick. So you must be constantly making connections for your children and helping your children make connections between what they know and what they are currently learning. Some children will tell you, I don't understand, it's too hard. You need to show them something that they know that they need in this class to be able to work in this class. We've talked about assessments. This assessment must be continuous. Assess that learning in real time. Assess that learning in real time. I'm going to, Mrs. Oni, please, how many minutes more do I have? Mrs. Babatunde, please, how many minutes more do I have?
You have just 1 more minute, but we've given you a few extensions, so we have 10 minutes more.
Thank you so much, because I want to be able to take some questions at the end. So I'm going to round up in 5, and then the last 5 we'll use it for taking questions. So filling in the gap, I've talked about this. You have to identify and address learning gaps that are crucial for your children in their math learning. Then you have to scaffold and differentiate. I cannot say this enough. You cannot give the same, you have children with varying math proficiencies in your class. You cannot give all of them the same questions. You cannot give all of them 20 questions and expect all of them to get the 20 questions right. You have to differentiate. In my class, I have children that can do 20. I have children that can do 10. I have children that can do 5. And guess what? If you scaffold, if you differentiate properly, your child who answers 5 questions will not feel like they are failed in a class when their friend answered 20. You must be able to do that for your children. That child who has worked through it, has put in the effort to get 5 questions correct, must feel like they have achieved something leaving your class. They cannot feel that you can't leave that child feeling less of themselves because they only answered 5 questions and their friend answered 6 or 7 or 10 questions. You must be able to differentiate, and this differentiation needs wisdom. It needs wisdom. The next thing is real life application. I said this is very important. Math is, how do we approach this question and how can we apply it to real life? These are the 2 big things in math. How do we approach a question like this? And how can we apply this in real life application? And then finally is peer teaching. See, I don't know if it's happened to you before, but as a teacher, you have taught this child, you have explained this way, this child still did not understand it. Then you now say, Kola, please come and explain this thing to Joshua. And like magic, Joshua understands it. Has anybody experienced that? Please, you have experienced it. Please let me know. You have talked, you have used all the saliva in your mouth, you have explained it this way, you have explained it that way, you have explained it this way. That child still did not understand it. Then Kola came and explained it, and then Joshua got it. It's called peer teaching. Sometimes that child is just tired of hearing your voice. They've switched off already. They're just tired of it. It's okay. You're not the owner of all of the knowledge. Sometimes do peer teaching. It is very effective, especially with children who get stuck. Ask somebody in the class to explain it, and you'll be surprised. So do a lot of peer teaching in your class. Do a lot of peer teaching in your class. It will help your children. It will also make the work easier for you. So you will not talk and faint. It will make the work easier for you as well. Peer teaching. Yes, thank you, Mary. It worked for your students. It also works for mine. So if you're a teacher here and you're not taking advantage of peer teaching, please do so. It is magic. But please, I have to put a caveat to peer teaching. Please, the child that is teaching, the teacher that is teaching, please let the child be a patient child and ensure that the child actually understands the concepts. Those 2 things, very important. Because I have a child that I was saying, explain to this person, and then next thing I heard, even this simple thing you cannot understand. Hey, please, So let the child be patient enough to explain it properly. And then let the child have a really, really deep conceptual understanding. I'm very serious with doing it. It was not funny. It was not funny. Let the child have a deep conceptual understanding of that topic so that they can explain. Peer teaching, very, very important. So there are some other ones, but I'm going to stop here because I believe I've used my 5 minutes. Please, does anybody have any questions about what we have looked at? We have looked at why math is important, reasons why children might struggle with math, and we've explored a few strategies that we can use to explore math classes. I'm just going to leave this on board. I'm not going to be talking again. Please, questions. Do we have any questions? Does anybody have any questions? You can put your hand up. You'll be unmuted so you can ask. But if you don't want to ask, you can put your questions in the chat. I'm looking at the chat. I'm reading. Thank you very much, Mrs. Winnie. Thank you. I'm looking at the chat. So if anybody has any questions, please, any contributions, anything that you want to add, we have 5 minutes more. I believe.
Thank you. Thank you very much. What do we think? How was this session? Let me hear your thoughts. And what do we have to say to Mrs. Okoro Sobo?
Sorry, ma, please. I have somebody that had a question.
Let me look through again. Okay. We have
I have two
we have two questions now.
I have two
How do we
questions.
handle a situation? How do we handle a situation where 70% of your learners understand and 30% do not? Please remember our rules. If you are not speaking, your mic should be mute. Thank you. How do you handle a situation where 70% of your learners understand and 30% do not? Second question, what are some of the methods to teaching multiplication? Can you show?
Okay, all right. So I'll take the first question. 70% of your children understand and 30 do not.
Mm-hmm.
Please, for those 30 that do not understand, we have gone through, go through what we have done today, which includes why children struggle with math and some of the strategies to help your children so that you know how to help those 30%. There is no magic to teaching math. It's either your children get it or they don't, and everybody will not get it at the same time. I have a child in my class who she takes her time, and truly she's a very, she's a very, the way you say, she's a very literal person. I was teaching LCM, and the first LCM I did, the first 3 LCMs I did, we used 2 to divide, and after using 2, we could no longer use 2, so we used 3. The homework that I gave required you to use 2 and then use 7. She said no. The teacher said after we use 2, we use 3. Nobody else in my class struggled with that. But I came to understand that she's a very, very literal thinker, and she is a very, very analytical thinker. In this activity that we did, this online session the last competition my children had, the logic one, she scored the highest. Because for her strength in math might not be in the calculating of it, but it is in the application of it to real life. So you need to know exactly where your children stand. The 30% that might be struggling, please find a way that works for them. It might not be one method that works for all of them. And please don't be in a hurry. Just be patient and work with them so that they can understand. Some of the methods that we can use to solving math. I don't know. Can I share my whiteboard so that I can walk through? I'll walk through 2 methods for multiplication.
Yes, you can.
Okay, thank you. I'll walk through 2 methods for multiplication. The first one is, so we know this method, which is the vertical multiplication. We know that when we have 24 times 15, for example, you would say 4 times 5 is 0, you carry 2. 5 times 2 is 10, plus 2 is 12. Then there is a 0 that goes here. 1 times 4 is 4. 1 times 2 is 2. You add, and then you have 360. That's a 6, so 360. Mr. Judge, please, you're going to help me with writing pad. That's my next project. I need writing pad, please. I digress. Now, let's look at another method of solving this question. 24. Who wrote on my board? Please, now I'm begging us. Please, I'm begging you in the name of God. Please don't write on my board, please. 24. So I'm showing you the lattice method of multiplication. 24 and 15. Okay. So you start like this. Let me see if I can clean what this person wrote on the screen. Okay, great. All right. So the first thing that you're going to do is 1 times 4. So this number times this number. 1 times 4 is 4. So these 2 boxes here, these 2 diagonals here, treat them as tens and units. Always treat them as tens and units. So 1 times 4 is 4. I have to write 2 numbers. So since I have a single number, I will write 0, 4. Then the next one is 4 times 5. 4 times 5 is 20. So in my tens part, in my unit part. Then you do the same thing using 1 and 2 for this box. 1 times 2 is 2. I cannot write 2. I need to write 2 numbers. So I'm going to write 0, 2. And then 5 times 2 is 10. 1 and 0. Now, when you're done with that, you add diagonally. 0 plus, there's nothing else to add here. So this is 0. 4 plus 2 plus 0 is 6. 0 plus 2 is 2. 2 plus 1 is 3. 0 plus nothing is 0. You read your numbers this way. Your answer is 360. This is the lattice method of multiplication. Now, the lattice method of multiplication can work for 3 by 3 digits, 2 by 3 digits. It depends. If you have 2 by 3 digits, make sure that you are drawing it this way. Who is still writing on my board? Please now. This is 2 by 3. You divide it that way. Ignore my bent lines, please, but you get the idea. So I have 54 times 360, for example. And it's the same thing applies. 3 times 4 is 12. 1, 2. 6 times 4 is 24. 2, 4. 0 times 0. 0 times 4 is 0. 0, 0. 3 times 5 is 15. 6 times 5 is 30. 0 times 5 is 0, 0. Then we begin to add diagonally. So 0, 4. 2 plus 2 is 4 plus 0, 0. That's 4. 1 plus 5 is 6. Plus 3 is 9. 1 plus nothing is 1. You read your answers this way. My answer is 19440. How did I even come across the lattice method of multiplication? I was just exploring. What are the different ways I can teach multiplication aside from the vertical that we know? Because that vertical can be confusing for some children. So this is another one. Another one is, I think the box method is similar to the partitioning method. I think the box method is the same as, so I have two numbers. I have a 34 times 20. Somebody's still writing on my screen. So you break this number down into tens, 30. So I'm going to move these numbers up. So I have 34. Where's my pen? 34 times 20. Please, are we following me? Are we following? The one I just finished is called the lattice method. I'm going to type it here. The one I just showed you is called the lattice method of multiplication. The one I'm explaining is called the box method of multiplication. This is called the box method of multiplication. So the box is similar to the partitioning method. It's basically, maybe it's the same thing, but just different names. This one, you would say, if this is 26, you're going to break this down into 34 would be on top. So you break it down into place values, 30 and 4. And then for 26, you're going to break it down into 20 and 6. Then you multiply. 20 times 4 is 80. That's very simple. 6 times 4 is 24. 20 times 3 is 600. I hope my math is sound this day. Yes. And then 6 times 30 is 180. And then you add up all these numbers together. When you add up all these numbers together, you have your answer. It's the same thing as multiplying 34 times 26. This is called the box method multiplication. So I think I've answered those two questions. I don't know if there are any more questions.
Yes, we have some more questions, quite a bit actually. Next question is,
would we be able to take them all?
We'll try.
Okay.
Let's see how many we can take because our time is up already.
No problem, ma'am. Once we can go no further, just let me know.
Let's just take 2 more, and then the others might have to wait till the end of the second session. Please, how do you handle teaching secondary classes when you're asked by the school to use playway method? Again, please, how do you handle teaching secondary classes when you're asked by the school to use playway method? Should I go on to the next question? Okay, go ahead.
Okay, so what is playway method? Playway method is just, they're telling you to teach it in a simplified way, right? To teach it in a simplified way or in a fun way, in a playful way. And trust me, there is no math concept that cannot be simplified. There is no math subject that cannot be simplified. No, not subject, topic that cannot be simplified. So if the school insists that you should use playway method, in short, as far as I'm concerned, they're even doing you a favor. They're doing their children a favor because they are removing that whole seriousness of math that makes children even struggle. So what I would advise you to do is, whatever that topic is, you can go online to research ways to teach this topic or ways to simplify this topic. And trust me, a lot of people have done work on how to simplify teaching, how to simplify different topics in math, whatever the topic is. So the truth is that whatever level it is, you can simplify that math. And that's really what the school is asking you to do. They're not basically saying play all the time. They just really need you to simplify it and not have it as serious as it is. I always say something. Math is a very structured subject, meaning that if your child is following a particular way, they have to complete it to get the answer. They can't do it halfway and get the answer. Math is pretty structured. And so because it is structured, sometimes the best way to teach it is in an unstructured way. Is without the pressure that comes from sit down, we're in math class. And most of us don't remember many of our teachers from secondary school. Well, we remember that wicked math teacher. Why? Why? So you don't be that wicked math teacher. Be a math teacher that makes math enjoyable for your children. Because math can be enjoyable for your children. Don't let your children leave primary school, go to secondary school, and then they'll remember you. That teacher, very wicked teacher. Why? Because you're teaching math. Math and wickedness are not synonymous. So let's find ways to simplify math, really. So explore, research, you will find ways. Research, you will find ways to simplify it. Okay, Ma, I can take one more question.
All right, just one more, then others can wait till the end. Illiterate businessmen can be very good with calculations as pertains to their business, but haven't got math skills in the academic sense.
They did not do math in the school, but guess what? There is no problem that they cannot solve if you put naira and kobo behind it. Because you see this math thing, we're just doing it in class. We are doing it in school. We're doing it in school, but it is a life skill. And that's one of the things that I said when I was explaining why it is important for us to teach math. Math is a life skill that children need to excel in the world. This person is illiterate, but he's an astute businessman. You can't cheat him because his math is on point. So math does not end in the classroom. It is for life. It is used for life. So this is a very real thing. Trust me, I have somebody that said to me once, is that what you were asking? You would have just put naira and kobo, I would have answered the question. And I laughed, but I'm serious. But it's a real thing. So math does not start and stop in the classroom. It is for real life. So when we teach math, we must understand why we are teaching it. We are teaching it so that these children can excel in life. This businessman did not go to school, but he's excelling at math, which is one of the real reasons for math. How do we solve this problem, and how can I apply it to real life? Okay, myself taking those two.
Thank you. Two questions. I think we'll have to stop there because we are well past the time. But the person that asked that last question, you probably didn't join us yesterday. If not, you would have understood the problem. Watch the TEDx video yesterday about math as a language. Businessman is speaking the language he understands because it wasn't the way he should have been taught. But that's it for session. Now we go to our final session for the day. After that session, Miss E, the convener, will say a few words and will also share our feedback. Our next speaker is none other than Timileyin Fagbenro. Young, but very passionate about math. I like to think of him as gifted.